process.
Wow. That brings a flood of emotions back for me, but that's okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Becki. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus, and I have suffered with PTSD, anxiety, depression. I've conquered abuse, codependency, peer pressure, and hatred towards others, and I am a survivor of domestic violence and rape. Hi. So, start from the very beginning. I was raised in a very loving home, family-oriented home, where family values were made a priority, and you respected your elders and do as you're told the first time, and there were punishments waiting if that's not what you did. I remember many things growing up, and the fact that we lived on a farm was great because I could escape to the woods or the fields to get away. My parents and my dad's dad all worked for the railroad, so I learned a lot about safety and transportation industry from an early age. I'm the oldest of 2 girls, but I grew up with lots of cousins around all the time, so it was like having many brothers and sisters. I was raised from a very young age in church and was very excited every time we got to go to church for any event. Children's church activities, youth activities, summer camp every year, all the way through graduation. I was part of the church choir, became a Sunday school teacher, and I even helped with the bus ministry and anywhere and everywhere I could. God allowed me to witness a miracle firsthand the summer of graduation when I went to camp as a counselor, and I watched a friend get hurt and paralyzed from the neck down the very first day of camp. This happened in front of all the kids that had just gotten to camp. And as the counselors got together, our lead counselor said, let's not bring him up all the time. Let's let the kids deal with this the way they need to. From the very first day, the children were praying over him repeatedly. From the first time they got up in the morning until the time we went to bed at night, we prayed. We were told that he would never be able to walk again, let alone do anything. And he had a full ride football scholarship to college that fall, which obviously that didn't happen. So with that being said, and the age of these children were third and fourth graders. So the power of third and fourth graders praying over somebody was very powerful to me. By the end of the week, though, we had gotten a report. Not only did he have feeling in his feet, but he was able to get up and he was starting to walk. But God took control. Times were a lot different then compared to now, and we had the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer first thing in the morning at school. And when you were bad, you got spanked. Now it is time out in school, suspensions or detentions. Kids today don't know what it was really like growing up in school like we did, honestly. But we were excited about the holidays, and you have to be careful how to greet people now so that you don't offend someone. I remember being able to look at anybody at Christmas time and saying Merry Christmas. My daughter was in school. She told somebody Merry Christmas, and she got yelled at, said it's not Merry Christmas, it's Happy Holidays. I told her, I says, no, where we come from, it's still Merry Christmas. Don't let somebody pull you down just because they don't like it. So growing up with a family that lived, I grew up with a family that lived through the Depression, which is my dad's side of the family, and my mom's side was born during the Depression. So I had two different outlooks in life when it came to family get-togethers. My dad's parents, being the older ones, and my grandpa was a hoarder, so I kind of followed his lead and became a hoarder for quite some time. I'm working on that one, and I know God's going to get me through. I always liked going to my mom's family functions because my aunts and uncles were a lot closer to my energy level than my dad's family. And even though he's the youngest of his family, my mom's the oldest of her family. My parents are 20 days apart in age. One of the differences that was difficult for me was that my mom was raised Catholic, and my dad's family was Methodist, and then we became Baptist. So yeah, what a switch, right? Not saying any right or wrong about anybody's religious background, okay? I just want you to know that I'm not condemning anybody. You know, as long as you believe in God and Jesus, that's the most important thing that I want to share with people. So after high school, I wasn't sure what to do with my life or where to find my place in society. And I went to college for a year, and it was a real struggle because I had gone to an accelerated Christian education school, which is not standard studies. Trying to adjust and going back to standard study was very difficult for me. I passed music and PE, and I did pretty good in my Bible classes because I went to a Christian college, but that was pretty much all I did. All the rest of my classes were not very well. We had societies instead of fraternities and sororities, and when you got to school, you were put into the societies. You picked one or another. And it's just like going to secular schools with the fraternities and stuff. Everybody's like, come on, come to my group, this is what we can offer you and stuff. It was pretty cool. It was still different, but that's okay. They had very strict rules for leaving campus and dating, and there was a no-tolerance policy for drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. With that being said, the day before Easter, I was hit in the right eye by a softball, watching the guys play ball. We could watch them, but they could never watch us. I didn't understand that, but okay. So After I got hit in the eye with the softball, I had to wait several hours because I was under 21, and you had to have at least 3 other girls go with me to get me to the hospital. Because it wasn't an emergency, I didn't need an ambulance. So got the girls together, went to the hospital, got everything taken care of, came back, and that's when I was introduced to Tylenol 3 with codeine. Didn't know what it was, never took anything more than aspirin or Tylenol my whole entire life. But I learned how to escalate quickly the medication. I was the giddy, crazy kid, but there again, God took control because of what God did for me, and I wasn't in control of taking the medications when I wanted it. I had to go through the infirmary. God kept me in check with the medication, and when it was done, I was done. I didn't need it anymore. I didn't desire it, so I thank God every day for that. Because of the fact that my glasses were broken and it took a while to get a new prescription sent to me, and I was living in Florida at the time, in Pensacola, so getting to the doctor and getting new glasses was a chore. And of course that was before cell phones too. And so I wore mirrored sunglasses. Everybody called me Rocky because of the glasses. That's what they said. And I found out recently, talking to somebody from up at Pensacola, that they still talk about Rocky to this day. That was 1984 that I was in school. They still talk about Rocky. Go figure, I don't know. But that summer I had gotten what I thought was my dream job, and it was at Cedar Point Amusement Park, where, where I learned a very valuable lesson. And the fact that being an adult means that breaks are flexible, and it means that minors get a break whenever they need it, and if you're deserving of a break, but they have to get theirs, theirs comes before you. It doesn't matter. So at first I thought that wasn't fair, but then again I was like, they are still kids, so what? But at the end of the season, I moved on, and I started working for a department store, and that's where I met my first husband. And my sister at this time was in the same college that I had gone to, and she came home at Christmas break, and she says, "Oh, by the way, I'm getting married." I'm like, what? So in December of 1986, my sister was married, moved away to the New England states, and because of her quicker engagement, I was pressured by my mom's mom on, when are you getting married? Your sister's married, how come you're not married yet? She's younger than you. Well, I let the pressure get to me, and my husband and I talked. So after knowing him for about 7 months, we were married. But I'm telling you today that that is not enough time to get to know anybody. Not in a relationship aspect anyways. Everything was fine at first, and I thought we were going to live happily ever after, as my parents did. And both sets of my grandparents were happily ever afters. I was sadly mistaken when I finally realized that I was being abused physically, mentally, and sexually. He kept pulling me away from the family and friends, and he didn't want me to do anything unless he approved of it. Like he was the ruler, not my husband. No one deserves that type of treatment. And so after 4 long years of me being the sole supporter of the relationship, I had enough and filed for divorce. After having gone and had counseling with my childhood pastor and a man of God that I truly looked up to, he assured me that divorce was okay, even though I was raised that it wasn't. After the divorce, depression set in hard, and I didn't really know who to turn to or what to do. So I went out for a ride in my car, and I was in my hometown area. It was black ice roads. It was a 90-degree left turn. Right straight in front of me was this huge tree that was probably 3 times as wide as my car. And I'm like, I'm going to hit that tree. I'm done. I'm taking it. Well, let me tell you, but God intervened in my life, whipped me around that 90-degree curve, got my car into a standstill, kind of did as what people call today Gibbs slap, and said, I'm not done with you yet. You can't do this. So I said, okay, fine. Well, I didn't want to be in my hometown. I didn't want to be anywhere where I could see him. So I moved up to Cleveland to get away and start over without seeing or hearing from him. This is where I became a victim of rape for the first time. I was at work. I was on the maintenance crew, and without going into detail, I was victimized at my workplace. When I went to my boss, I told him about it. He told me I was nothing but a liar and that I provoked it. And I knew that I couldn't stay there any longer. So I had a second job, and I went to my bosses at my second job, and I talked to them, and they gave me 40 hours a week in 3 days. So I could take up odd jobs on the side to still sustain myself. Yes, I was in church when I could, and I had a pastor as a counselor to help me deal with many issues at the time. And 1 Corinthians 3:16 and 17 says, don't you know that you yourself are God's temple and that God's Spirit lives in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him, for God's temple is sacred, and you are the temple. Psalm 34:17 through 19 says, the righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and saves those who are crushed in spirit. A righteous man may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. The lesson I learned most is hopefully to make me a stronger person. Had to get away, regain my independence, and find my faith and trust in God. This is what I desired most for my life. This is when I was introduced to Celebrate Recovery for the first time. And my sponsor was an amazing woman of God. She reminded me that doing God's will is the only way to survive. So she got me into a study, and it made me realize that I had issues with things from my past, including being pleasing to people. Step study was a hard road for me, and as I worked this step study again, I feel that as new things come up, dealing with them immediately instead of pushing them into the closet is the best thing to do. Sadly, my sponsor has passed, and I had interviewed a couple different sponsors and found a new sponsor, but it took me some time because trust in someone is something that's very important when you're looking for a sponsor. I can tell you that having accountability partners or accountability team and finding a good sponsor are all parts of working and continuing my recovery. I was only single for about 2 years before going to truck driving school to better my life. While I was in school, I met husband number 2 as he was studying to become a diesel mechanic. About the time I graduated, we started dating, and it was about a 2-hour drive to and from school to my hometown, because he was still in school for another couple months. So I would travel back and forth on weekends to see him because I had gotten a job driving truck. And then I had gotten pregnant, and the week that he was to graduate, I was there for a visit over the weekend and had complications, ended up at the hospital and lost my baby. He stayed with me at the hospital for 3 days before having to go back to school as he needed to so he could graduate. The hardest part of that whole ordeal was being without my family and being put in the middle of a maternity ward while I was mourning the loss of my child. and they would play the baby lullaby twice a day, and I had to endure this. 3 months later, him and I had decided that we're going to get married, and again, I was pregnant. 5 months later, I lost one of the twins that I was carrying and didn't understand why this was happening to me. I delivered a beautiful baby girl, and she was the first girl in her dad's family for 7 or 8 generations. She was special and spoiled by his family over and over again. And then 2 years later, she became a big sister to a little sister. God blessed me with beautiful, healthy daughters, and I was very happy and blessed to the point of dedicating them to the service of the Lord. Shortly thereafter, my husband got a promotion, and we moved to South Carolina. I was in a place where I had no friends, no family, and I was a stay-at-home mom. When I did finally make friends, I became a babysitter for a couple of the kids from the church we were attending, and I enjoyed going to Bible study that I could get out of the house and stay connected with women of God. Then my husband started calling all the time. Where are you? What are you doing? Why are you there? For me to drive from my house to the Bible study would take about 15, 20 minutes, depending on the traffic and stuff. He would call her house. Like I said, this is still before cell phones. He called her house at least 10 times before I got there. Is she there yet? Is she there yet? And our Bible study would usually take 30 to 45 minutes. During Bible study, he would call at least 5 to 7 times and interrupt, and it became embarrassing for me. However, I didn't realize that this was abuse until years later when I got back into counseling. One day, he came to the house and said he was done. He slammed the door in the face of our oldest daughter, and she started crying, and she couldn't understand why he did this to us. He took the only vehicle that we had, left me stranded with the girls, and no way of getting anywhere. My oldest daughter harbored that action for the longest time, and it broke my heart every time she would replay that action when she was playing with her sister at the house. I called my parents, and on my mom's birthday, they came from Ohio and pulled up with a tiny little U-Haul trailer. Says, whatever you can fit in this and the van, that's all we can take. And I said, okay, Lord, you filled the van and the trailer with what you need me to keep. And so we moved back to Ohio, and I stayed with them. And then 7 months later, my dad was transferred to Georgia with the railroad. And this is where my dad retired 5 years later from Norfolk and Southern. While we were in Georgia, I met my best friend that has 2 girls the same age as mine, and the girls were 4 peas in a pod. Even though they had their disagreements, we became a close-knit little family of siblings. While we were in Georgia, the girl's dad filed for divorce, and I was granted full custody at that time. A couple months later, he was married to another woman and had the girls in the wedding. And I had to handle the girls being upset and angry and reassure them that they will always be loved no matter what. Once again, I am trying to move forward and regain my independence and self-worth, but not showing my emotions to the girls so that they don't see any hurt or anger from me. However, I never spoke poorly of their dad around them and didn't allow others to speak ill of him either. While in Georgia, I got put in a bad situation, and again, I was sexually assaulted, and my self-worth was even more crushed, and I didn't know how to handle it, except to let go and let God have control. One of my worst fears was the whispers behind my back and people nitpicking the things I did, the way I was raising the girls alone, and the best way I knew how to do it. Self-doubt, yes, that was me all the time. Romans 8:7 says, "The sinful mind is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so." Realizing that I can't take care of myself and my children on my own at the time, I had to submit my life to God for guidance, and I had the best support group ready to help me out. My parents. Not only were they there for me financially, but they were also my babysitter to take care of the girls so that I could go and work and help take care of my own. With my parents being retired and on the road, they sold the house in Georgia and I had to move back to Ohio. We stayed with my sister for a while, and I worked different hours than her because she was a single mom as well. So she would work mornings, I would work nights. And the other one would have the kids, so the kids were always with family. To me, that was very important. So we stayed with her for a while, and then I finally got on my feet and had a place of my own. Then the big drop came when the girls' dad took me back to court for custody. After he and his people said things about me, and I didn't have a chance to defend myself or let my witnesses be heard, he was granted custody. 2 incomes over 1, they said, was a major issue, and the girls were lashing out for the whole issue of Dad's house having a lot different rules than at my house. They were not doing well in school, so with less than a semester of school left, he took them out of school in Ohio and uprooted them into a new school system. It was difficult, and my depression became very overwhelming. I didn't want to go home or be at home on the days I didn't work, and I was still going to church, but I wasn't being filled by being there. Then, about a month later, my cousin, who was like a brother, took his life, and I really fell further into depression and wasn't sure how I was ever going to survive. I got a second job, and I'm now working 70 plus hours a week, or so the second job became my only job. Leaving my first job after almost 2 years, I dove in head first into working, and then I met husband number 3. Charlie Brown, yes, that's his name, came into my store and stayed there the entire shift just watching me. With either having a lack of sleep or oversleeping to cope, I said yes when he asked me out. 7 weeks later, weeks, y'all, I was married in our living room, and my life changed again. No more church because I worked every Sunday, and having a husband with mental issues that I really didn't know anything about before saying I do was a real challenge. At first, the girls were kind of iffy with him and later began to dislike him very much. I had to learn how to live out of my bedroom other than cooking, using the restroom, or doing laundry, or going to work. I was a codependent to his addiction of smoking, and he didn't allow me to have a way to release any emotions, good or bad. I wasn't allowed to talk about work. I wasn't allowed to mention work if I was around him. So that made my depression even harder. The accusation started with being told that I was with someone else, and he was accusing me of cheating with his family members and other people, and he tried to get our friends to believe him over me. But when people believed me in private, it was another fight to deal with. We separated twice before the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. And when he physically attacked me, and I had to go to the hospital for injuries that I got from being beat from behind, he ended up being charged with domestic violence and served time in jail. We got back together after the false promises of, "I'm sorry, I won't do that again. Please let me take care of you. I've changed." All of those were just empty words, but he never did. And because of the marriage vows, I tried to reconcile with no avail. So my best friend in Georgia got a hold of me. She says, "Pack your car, pack it as full as you possibly can, and come here." At that time, I had no job, no income. I didn't know how I was going to make it from Ohio back to Georgia. Then God stepped in. My family put gas in my car, gave me enough gas to have another tank and a half to go, and a little bit of money for food, and said, go. So on my birthday, that is my sobriety date as well, I can honestly say that I now have 12 years clean. Thank you. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that without God in control of my life, I wouldn't be where I am now, or the person that God is instilling me to be. God leads and I listen, even though at times I still am a Jonah, and try to do things my way. Keeping a journal, Bible reading, studying the Word, prayer are all parts of my ongoing healing process. As I took on the journey in Georgia, God helped me to fight for my disability and granted me courage to stand up for myself with the fact that I am not able to hold a job because I have migraines that are so severe, and they're unpredictable. I can't tell when, I can't tell where, I can't tell how long. Nobody will hire you with those statistics. So that kept me from getting a job. But I have been blessed with having a doctor to go to, and she was helping me with getting medication and trying to figure out what was causing it. They still, to this day, have never given me an answer on what causes my migraines. But in the past several years, I have continued to find the path of healing and growing closer to God and having a better relationship with my girls. I got to spend Mother's Day with my girls for the first time in something like 8+ years, and we had a fun-filled weekend together doing things that I would have never done without them. God has blessed me with an amazing forever family and has given me the opportunity to serve in leadership and to continue growing and healing with God's love and guidance. I have been a caretaker, a friend to family members in Georgia, and I met some amazing new friends that are now part of my extended family. God has blessed me abundantly with many blessings, and my journey continues with God as my guide. In the last 3 years that I've been here in Florida, I moved down to help take care of my dad. My dad passed away on the 31st, it'll be 3 years ago. And now I continue to take care of my mom, but I have never stopped Celebrate Recovery. Some people say, why? And I'll tell you why. Because without Celebrate Recovery and without my forever family and continuing to hear other people's stories, I know that I'm not alone. Just like I want to share with you, you are not alone ever. And just remember, in that darkest point when you feel the most helpless and the most discouraged, God is there to pick you up and carry you through it if you let him. My life verse is 2 Timothy 2:15. Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a workman who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. Thank you for letting me share.